What's happening, all you minties? Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition, and today is Tuesday. That means I get to talk about these collected editions coming out from Marvel this week. So, let's get started. Before getting started, I'm going to give David Gabriel and the fine folks at Marvel a huge thank you for sending us advanced copies of these collected editions coming out this week. All these books are due out on January 17th or 18th, depending on where you get your books. So yes, the weekly overviews of Marvel Collected Editions are back. We have a couple of epics, one of them being a huge reprint that you all voted for. By the way, that reprint poll will be coming out sometime in February, I think. So we could give Marvel the top 20 books that you all want reprinted. And as far as the Omnis, that will also come out. Probably that will come out first in early February. We've got a brand new Epic collection that is kind of interesting because last week I reviewed the volume that comes right after this. So I think this was supposed to be due out in December originally. The final complete collection of Fantastic Four by Jonathan Hickman, a brand new Saga book, a trade, a Marvelverse, and a Marvel Masterworks of stuff I have never read. So this was a nice surprise. There were some wonderful stories in here. All right. So as always, I will leave timestamps in the description of the video for you all to jump around in case you're not interested in one book or in case you don't want any kind of spoilers. Although most of these, with the exception of this one here and this one here, will be spoiler free. I mean, unless you don't know who this guy is, then I don't know. Yeah, is that a spoiler? I don't even know. Okay. So please smash that like button, subscribe, ring that bell for notifications. Seriously, you guys, that goes a long way for us, and it's something small you can do, and thank you so much to all the people that have shared the videos and liked the videos. All right, let's go ahead and start. Let's do the Marvelverse book. Kicking off the week is the Marvelverse, Ant-Man and the Wasp little digest-sized book. I've done overviews of these before, but in case you're not familiar with the sizes of these, they are a little bit smaller than your trade paperbacks like these. And these are the standard size trades. So the dimensions of those single issues that these originally were printed in. Whereas this is a little bit smaller, but also cheaper. These are $9.99. And this one has 120 pages. So here's the contents right here. I like that this kicks off with Avengers Origins, which is a really interesting retelling of the origin of Hank Pym becoming Ant-Man. I mean, even going through some of the dark stuff that was later on added in this Avengers series. So that does collect the Avengers Origins, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Ant-Man Larger Than Life, which is a 2015 one-shot. The Marvel Premiere, this one right here is the Larger Than Life, another retelling of his origins and kind of talking about his powers more, and Marvel Premiere 47 through 48, which is not the first appearance of Ant-Man, but rather the first appearance of this character right here, that I'm sure most people are familiar with, and that is Scott Lang. So Scott Lang is the second Ant-Man, and takes over the role of Ant-Man as of these two issues here, drawn by John Byrne. And then it also has Ant-Man and the Wasp Living Legends, which I got a little deja vu because I was like, I think I just read this. And this is written by Ralph Macchio right here. And this can also be found in the next book I'm going to be talking about. Again, this is just used to kind of catch people up to date as to who these characters are, whether you're reading about the original Ant-Man, Hank Pym, or the new Ant-Man, Scott. Why did I almost say Pilgrim? Scott Lang. I don't know what the hell's wrong with me. Scott Lang. Which I'm sure most people are familiar with because of the movies. That's like their Ant-Man. And he is also the current Ant-Man. And these are all the other little Marvelverse books introducing you to these characters. So just kind of editors getting together and saying, okay, these are the best stories that represent the characters and can catch people up to speed with their powers and their origins. Miss Marvel Fist of Justice. So this is a trade paperback series that collects 3 different one-shots in here. This collects the Miss Marvel and Wolverine one-shot. All of these, by the way, written by Jody Houser. Here are the artists, Z. Carlos, Ibrahim Robertson, and Dave Watcher. So yes, there is a Miss Marvel and Wolverine #1 in here. There is a Miss Marvel and Moon Knight, and a Miss Marvel and Venom. All these little one-shots that came out in 2021. So she doesn't have an ongoing series right now, but she did have a Disney Plus show. So it was time to get Kamala Khan back out there. And the stories all connect. The first one here, where she teams up with the X-Men to take down these little robotic insects here that are attacking the city. She's the one that figures out how to do it. I thought was really sweet. That leads into the next story arc, where it's a bunch of robotic rats that are attacking the city this time around. But instead of the X-Men, it's Moon Knight that she teams up with. And also Hunter's Moon, because Moon Knight hasn't been alone in this series that is ongoing right now by Jed MacKay. If you've not been reading it, it's really good. Now, these stories are all connected because there's one person that is in charge of everything, that is wreaking havoc across the city with their little robotic animals. But by the time we get to the third book, which is the Venom book, it stops being about robotic creatures and more about like human beings actually being used as part of these experiments. And I thought she made a really cute comment that I'm like, oh my gosh, that's really cool. And she says, we gotta stop these humans from Tetsuoing all out. I'm a fan of Akira, which at first I was a little like, no way would a kid this age be a fan of Akira. Then I thought, wait a minute, of course she is. Kids these days are into retro things like Akira. So yes, humans inject themselves with these vials, and it transforms them into things like this. So this isn't just a team up with Venom, because in the third arc, Wolverine and Moon Knight do come back. All the way in the back, we do have some variant covers. This book retails for $15.99, and it has 104 pages. And I really do miss the character of Kamala Khan in comic book form. I wish G. Willow Wilson would come back and write more of her stories in ongoing format. And we need those Omnis. My daughter's been asking for years. Ant-Man, the Saga of Scott Lang. So this is one of those Saga books. And Saga books are sort of like your complete collections and epic collections, but stories that don't really fit into epics yet, because these are more modern stories. This collects Ant-Man and the Wasp, for example, the 2018 series. It also collects the Living Legends. As a matter of fact, this is how it kicks it off. Living Legends #1. Giant Man 1 through 3, which I love that story. And Ant-Man 1 through 5, as well as the Guardians team up. So here you have all the creative team, like Ralph Macchio doing this Ant-Man and the Wasp Living Legends one-shot, Guardians team up. There's the creative team there. Mark Waid writing the Ant-Man and Wasp 5-issue series. Giant Man was written by Leah Williams. And then Ant-Man 1 through 5 was written by Zeb Wells. And that Ant-Man series is the one that came out in 2020. Now, I've read some of these before. Like, I've read this Living Legends before. Actually, in fact, I was reading it through the Marvelverse book, and I'm like, wait a minute, that looks familiar. This is a really cool story, because this is a team-up with Scott Lang and the original Wasp. This is Janet Van Dyne. And going back to a story from the Tales to Astonish, where they go and help this planet that is being overthrown. So they go and see some people that the original Giant Man, Ant-Man, Hank Pym had helped out in the past. Then we have a Guardians team up. So most of this focuses on the new Ant-Man, right? Because this is called the Saga of Scott Lang. This is a team up with Drax, where, of course, they get thrown into a huge intergalactic mayhem. And he gets stuck there. But it's really cool, because that leads into the next book. Now we have Nadia. This is Nadia Van Dyne. This is Hank Pym's daughter. And her stepmom is Janet Van Dyne, the Wasp. So now she goes as Wasp too. So she is the second Wasp. And I know it might get confusing if you're coming from the movies going, well, where's Hope? Technically, I guess she's Hope in a weird way, but she's a lot younger in the comics. So her and Scott do not have a romantic type of story. But they do team up for this mini-series right here. This one written by Mark Waid. And it's awesome. They get thrown into this intergalactic war. They're trying to come back to Earth. She's the one that's trying to help him. And it's just a nice little... Oh, I don't want to say slice of life, but I've really grown to like the character of Nadia. She's a lot different than Janet. Then we get one of my favorite, most underrated series here from the War of the Realms, and that is Giant Man 3-issue miniseries. But it's the giant man of the Marvel Universe, like Scott Lang, and anybody that can turn big, including one of the Thunderbolts, right here, Atlas. There's Bill Foster, who's now going, or Tom Foster rather, sorry, who's now going as Goliath, and then the other giant man. But the main premise of this is that during War of the Realms, the Earth is being attacked by Malekith and all these different creatures from across the different realms, and one of the realms is the Frost Giants. So the 4 giant men pretend to be Frost Giants to infiltrate this base of operation. And it's so ridiculous and over the top, it made me laugh. Stature does show up in here. Or, I'm sorry, Cassie. Maybe she goes by Stature, but she does play a big role in this series right here. And this is the Ant-Man series. The 5-issue miniseries from 2020. And it's nice to see Cassie back in here. Now, for people that have read like Young Avengers and stories like that, you're wondering how Cassie is back. Well, I'm not here to talk about that because that's kind of a spoiler, but she is in this story, whether it takes place in the past or in present time, that's for you to find out. But this book right here retails for $39.99. It has 336 pages all the way in the back. We have some variant covers, and I know we have some sketches back here too. There we go, and this is the cover sketches. And then Ant-Man character designs by Dylan Burnett. And the monster designs there. Other collected editions, both of these I think are being released this month. And then the Anniversary, this one also being released this month. Fantastic Four by Jonathan Hickman, the complete collection, volume 4. Wrapping up Jonathan Hickman's run on the Fantastic Four. Now, before I talk about this one, I do want to say that there might be some spoilers, not exactly to ask how things happened, but even flipping through pages here will reveal what's happened lately in the world of the Fantastic Four by Jonathan Hickman. So just in case you haven't read Volume 3, you've never read these stories, and you want to experience these for yourselves, minor spoilers. Because this is in the aftermath of a huge story arc that was building since his first issue that he wrote of Fantastic Four, and I would hate to spoil that for anybody, especially since it's one of my favorite Fantastic Four stories. Just in case, minor spoilers. Not going to talk about how and when and why, but just want to play it safe. All right, let's go ahead and crack this open. The world's greatest comic magazine. There was in his goodbye letter to the Fantastic Four, he was talking about how upset he was that this was not dubbed the world's greatest magazine, and he wanted it to be. All right, so in this one, that kicks off the story is one of the best stories that Jonathan Hickman wrote. It's one of my favorite Fantastic Four stories, and it's all about friendship and how much you look forward to just being with your friends, and whether it's watching a sports game or drinking a beer with them or playing video games or just being around their presence. And this makes you appreciate them even more. It's a beautiful story. I'm not going to reveal exactly who I'm talking about here or how it happens, but it does have some time travel elements in there. And then we get to see the aftermath of everything that happened in the previous volume with the Council of Reeds and what's going on with the Fantastic Four, what's happening with the Future Foundation. This collects issue 605 of the Fantastic Four, then of course it's back to its legacy number, as well as 605.1, 606 to 611, and then FF, which is the Future Foundation stories, 17 through 23. One of my favorite stories in here, too, is during this time, Johnny Storm and Spider-Man are living together. And they're both having a hard time living with each other. They've been friends for years, and they're just not used to syncing up with each other's work schedule or superhero schedule. So they're both having issues, and they don't really feel like talking about it with each other about how miserable their each roommate is making them. So eventually one of them snaps. But we get to focus more on the Future Foundation through these stories. Kind of a little bit of a let's have the calm before. Actually, this is probably the calm after the huge storm that's happened. There are a couple of big stories that happen here that bring back a few characters, and of course wrap up some stories in here. The kids do get to visit Wakanda, so we do get to see Black Panther and some of the characters that were appearing through his comics at the time. And the artwork through here is done, I mean, it's varied. It's Mike Choi, it's Ron Garney, Ryan Stegman, Giuseppe Camuncoli, doing some of the artwork throughout these pages. But man, rereading these stories, it just makes me miss the Future Foundation. I love the idea of kids just being kids, but a lot smarter than most of us, right? Like, oh, the wonderful additions to the Fantastic Four lore. Ryan Stegman supplying the artwork by now for these final few issues, including the return of the Wizard and what exactly he's going to do with, quote-unquote, his kid. The Future Foundation has a couple of new members. There are some bittersweet goodbyes through here, some returning characters that, of course, they have to return. And then, that door, man. That door is more than just a door. This book retails for $39.99. It's really hard to talk about this without jumping into spoilers. $39.99. Now, of course, something you probably noticed as I'm flipping through here. Where are the covers? Well, it's a Jonathan Hickman book. So, all the covers are in the back. This is what he likes to do. He likes to give people that reading a prose novel experience. You're not going to be interrupted by covers. He wants you to read the whole thing, not knowing exactly where you are. Some people like this. While I do like it in his own books like East of West, I kind of got used to superhero books letting me know what issue I'm on, because I like to go back and reread that issue, and if I don't know what issue I'm on, then how can I talk about one of my favorite issues, like that Ben Grimm issue, or the Johnny Storm issue, so you get the idea. But yes, these are the covers, including some of the variants back here, which is something that he likes to do. The book has 368 pages, and again, wrapping up the phenomenal run by Jonathan Hickman. Here's some original artwork, and his goodbye letter from Fantastic Four 611. Alright, it's spine watching time. Do I get that from It's Clobbering Time? I think I do. Never thought about it. And also a reminder to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring that bell for notifications, please. But these are the spines of all the books coming out this week. Alright, let's continue with the overview. Now, just last week, I talked about this book here, which was Invasion of the Spider Slayers. However, this book is volume number 24, and this one is volume number 23. It just happens to have happened that way, because this was supposed to be out in December, this one in January, but sometimes the distributing gods are against us. I'm gonna say something. You spider folk are eating so good. Let me show you why. Look at this. 23, 24, 25, 26. Look how much spiders... Oh my gosh, I can't even talk. Spider-Man from the 90s you have in collected edition format. This is insane. This was something we never thought would happen. You have everything from 1992 all the way to 1994. Like, if you had told me that I was going to have Spider-Man, when I first started getting the Epic collections, first of all, it's called the Marvel Epic line. We're going to flip this open. We'll talk a little bit about it here. Actually, no, hold on a second. There's something big that happens through these issues, and I don't want to spoil it for anybody. I know it's the 90s, so people are like, it's the 90s. Who cares? But there is something big that happens in the life of Spider-Man. I'm not going to get into the how it happens or what happens to these characters, but just in case, spoilers for this one. Sort of a big spoiler because it's during the anniversary issue that this happens in, but I don't want to spoil that for anybody. Then I can go on a whole thing about epics, but just in case, spoilers. And you've probably seen my videos enough to know that my spoilers aren't huge, or like I go into details about them. All right, let's come back to this. So yes, first of all, this had a different cover at first. It had my New Warriors cover from Amazing Spider-Man Annual, the Hero Killers. This is another Hero Killers cover, but they decided to focus more on the Sphinx. Yeah, he's sort of the villain in there. When I first started getting the Marvel Epic lines, they started with Iron Man and Thor, Captain America, and Fantastic Four was it Avengers. And then they added 2 more lines. That was the Fantastic Four and Spider-Man. And in my head, I'm like, okay, these are called Marvel Epics. That's amazing. Like, we're going to get everything from like the 60s, 70s, and 80s. I never thought that a Marvel Epic line would have things like Carnage or any of these 90s books like Maximum Carnage, Life Theft, all the stories that I just talked about, Invasion of the Spider Slayers. So it's crazy for me, who has been reading this, and I know for Curtis, since we got these since the first one with Iron Man, that we have these stories now. And honestly, in almost complete order. I mean, they're still coming. We get 2 Spidey Epics a year. Usually a classic and usually something modern or somewhere in the middle. Sometimes they surprise us. But I'm just... wow. Okay. Let's focus back to this, because this is very important to talk about, because this kicks off with the first full appearance of Carnage with issue 361. So this does collect Amazing Spider-Man 361 to 367. Yes, this is going to get crazy, because that's all the Amazing Spider-Man ongoing issues that are collected through here. But that's because we have the annuals. You have Amazing Spider-Man Annual 26, Amazing Spider-Man Soul of the Hunter, material from Spectacular Spider-Man number 12, Web of Spider-Man Annual number 8, and New Warriors Annual number 2. Although the annuals for Spider-Man, Web of, and Spectacular seem to be full. So I don't know. I mean, they seem like they're complete. So yes, the first appearance of, or the first real battle, right, between Carnage and Spider-Man. Oh my gosh, I love these issues. I love the team up with Venom. It's a huge trope, a villain teaming up with a hero to take down a stronger villain. I don't care. I love the idea of a psychopath that just loves killing for the sake of killing, having his own superpowers now. People compare him to the Joker, and rightly so. He just kills for absolutely no reason. And, this gets Peter Parker to go and team up with Venom. And Venom at this time thought, whoa, what are you doing alive, man? Last time I held you like a skull. What's going on? But they team up to take down this monster. Now, after this huge story arc, we take a break from the ongoing Spider-Man series to... actually, what is this here? Oh, no, this is the annual. Talk about the Hero Killers annual. That's right, someone's going around and trying to kill some heroes with different armor, different powers, and pretty sure you can guess who's behind it. But the most important part about this is that we have a team up with the New Warriors. Now later on, you'll see that the New Warriors do become a Spider-Man title, believe it or not. If ever Marvel decides to release a New Warriors Omnibus Volume 3, it won't be like the first 2. It's a completely different story. It's like tying it in heavily with the Clone Saga and the Ben Reilly era of Spider-Man. The Scarlet Spider-Man ends up joining the New Warriors. Of course, editorial and sales. But this is what I mean. Like, this is Web of Spider-Man Annual number 8. And it says it has material from here, but it has the main story. And it has the Venom story in here. I really do think it's complete, because it also has the Cloak and Dagger story that continued from the previous Amazing Spider-Man annual. Then we have the conclusion here with New Warriors Annual number 2. Brandon Peterson, this is the first time I remember seeing Brandon Peterson's artwork before he went over and took over Uncanny X-Men. Fabian Nicieza doing the writing in here. And it is the New Warriors with Spider-Man teaming up against the Sphinx. Then we talk about one of the most important graphic novels, if you're a fan of Kraven the Hunter. This is the Amazing Spider-Man Soul of the Hunter. J.M. DeMatteis teams up again with Mike Zeck to tell a story about... well, let's talk about the beginning first. It's Peter Parker and Mary Jane going to a friend's mom's funeral. So this is their friend Roger. His mom passed away. And Peter is just freaking out. Like, he's having nightmares at night about Kraven the Hunter and this empty grave. So if you have not read Kraven's Last Hunt, which, hey, by the way, you're in luck because this was just reprinted in Epic format last month, I think, or at the beginning of this year. Yeah, no, it was at the beginning of this year because we've had 3 epics released, 3 Spider-Man epics released in 1 month. Then go and read that first because this is a follow-up to that. It's a follow-up I didn't expect. I remember reading that graphic novel for the first time, and it's one that I did not expect to go the way that it did. Which is good in comics, because sometimes in comics you're like, oh, I kind of know the formula. Kraven's going to come back, he's going to haunt his nightmares, they're going to duke it out. I didn't expect it to go in ways that it did. I will leave it at that. We go back to Spider-Man, the ongoing series with 364. It's the return of the Shocker. Mark Bagley supplying the artwork here. Randy Emberlin, I believe, is the artist. And that leads into issue 365. Now, there was some foreshadowing before this with the final issue of Carnage, issue 364. There's these 2 people that appear at the airport. They're a couple of people, probably in their 60s, walking out of the airport, and they're looking for Peter Parker. Now, as it is revealed through this particular anniversary issue, and I talked a little bit about this in the Life Theft overview, it turns out that it is Peter Parker's parents. They have come back. Because the whole time he was raised by Uncle Ben and Aunt May. Who are these people? Are they really his parents? What's going on? And then Stan Lee kind of breaks down the history of Spider-Man and the history of his parents. This is one of my favorite stories that's in that anniversary issue. I believe this is the first time it's ever been collected whole. I don't remember if that anniversary issue has this. Honestly, wait. I don't think this anniversary issue has ever been collected. And I've been getting these trades for decades now. Please correct me if I'm wrong, if the anniversary issue has been collected or not. For some reason, I have a false memory implant like Wolverine that thinks that the 4 anniversary issues, Spider-Man adjectiveless, amazing, web of, and spectacular, have been collected somewhere before, but I don't think they have. This is the David Michelinie story, retelling everything through Jonah Jameson, how he made Spider-Man, but this is one of my favorite stories. Stan Lee comes back to script this. The plot is by Tom DeFalco, and the art is by the legendary John Romita, not Jr., and is Mary Jane remembering Gwen Stacy. And just this artwork, my goodness, there's just a classy feel to it. It's beautifully drawn, throws back, to those days of, I don't want to say innocence because of everything going around Peter Parker's life, just falling apart, but it's a beautiful reminder of who she was. I believe this is the Prowler story. The first 30 years. Pin-up right there of things to come. Oh, it's a poster. That was a pin-up. Issue 366 here with the Red Skull. Again, more of the mystery of his parents. Solo makes an appearance, and they team up against evil Captain America, evil Hawkeye, and evil Spider-Man, but they go as Death Shield, the Jagged Bow, and Blood Spider. I guess this could have been your Thunderbolts at one time, but that wraps up this series, or this particular Epic Collection. Very happy to have all this, again, in this format. It's just crazy that this stuff has been collected. This one here is $44.99, and it has 480 pages. Next up is X-Men Epic Collection. It's always darkest before the dawn. As an X-head, this was a collection, like a dream come true of a collection, if you will. The stories in here, some of them had been reprinted before, but to have it all in one place, this is before the box set came out. And this book quickly went out of print. This reprint is $49.99, so that is something to, that stands out, because I think the first printing was $39.99. But this is X-Men Epic Collection. If you're keeping tabs on them, this is volume 4. The years are 1971 and 1975. That's probably the most years you're going to have in a collection for Epic format, but that's because during this time, X-Men, the ongoing X-Men that became Uncanny X-Men, was canceled due to sales. Yeah, man, people weren't digging X-Men. So what exactly does this collect? Now, if you look at the solicitations, this states that it collects X-Men 67 to 93. Those are just covers, because those were just, for example, right here, they were just reprints of previous X-Men adventures, because the magazine stopped. So they were like, well, we'll stop printing new stories. Let's go ahead and just reprint old stories. It does collect, and actually the annuals as well. The 2 annuals are also said to be collected in here, but those are just reprints too. Now, this does collect Amazing Spider-Man 92. This is a fresh story that features Iceman attacking Spider-Man for some reason. And then we have Amazing Adventures 11 through 17, which is very important. Incredible Hulk 150, 161, 172, 180 to 182. Marvel Team Up number 4, number 23. Avengers 110 to 111. Captain America 172 to 175. Defenders 15 through 16. And Giant Size Fantastic Four number 4. Now, if you ask your typical X-Men reader, yeah, some of the stories in here are important, and some they could have just left out, and you want to, you can go and read it in the Captain America Epic Collections or the Defenders Epic Collections. But I think there's a couple of stories in here that you must read, because I feel like they introduce characters that you're going to be seeing later on, or they introduce concepts that you're going to be seeing later on. So yes, this is the Spider-Man issue right here. Again, it's a hodgepodge of just where the X-Men appeared throughout the Marvel Universe when their magazine was canceled. It's like, what are we going to do with these characters? And it's Iceman meeting Spider-Man thinking he's a bad guy. And then we get Hulk 150, which is the return of Havoc and Lorna Dane. Not Polaris, because she's never called Polaris through here. And it's honestly a story that kind of forgets about the characters halfway through. But we come back to that later on. Because then we get the Amazing Adventures 11 through 17. So these are just really fun stories. Maybe not to the Beast, but this is Jerry Conway and Tom Sutton changing the character of Hank McCoy. So this is where he becomes into a mutated hairy beast. At first he's gray, and then what happened? Like, he has some kind of trauma. He lays down, he wakes up, and he's got not blue fur, he calls it black. So this blue furry beast does come out of this particular story. By the time we get, I think it's a different artist portrayal of the character. I love the way that this is mapped, by the way. It's wonderful because, we jump from this issue. We still have the cover collected here of X-Men 77 that reprints X-Men 29. And then we move over to Marvel Team Up of Spider-Man and the X-Men. Marvel Team Up, of course, being the story of Spider-Man teaming up with someone else from the Marvel Comics line, to kind of give that character a spotlight and to give him a boost in popularity. We continue the story of the Beast. This is him taking on the Avengers. But by now you see that his colors are changing a little bit. What's happening here? Well, by the time he gets knocked out and he comes back in the next issue, right here, he passes out on this couch. And due to this trauma and this big fight with Quasimodo, he wakes up and he's like, what's happening here? My fur, it's not gray anymore, it's black. But this was a really unique collection because a lot of these stories I had not read in, like, the Beast stories had been collected, but not fully in a trade paperback series before. What was it? It's like Mutations or something like that. And it had been reprinted in some other X-Men, like, single issues. But I had never read it as a whole until this particular trade paperback came out. The Juggernaut comes back in this particular issue to fight the Beast. And that's from the cover right there. That's the original cover. This is the new colors. And so the Beast plays a huge part in this. And his storyline kind of gets wrapped up in the Incredible Hulk issues right there. This is during the Steve Englehart era of the Avengers, with Magneto, and him ended up wearing, what's his name's outfit? Angel's outfit. Now, some of these you're going to be like, wait a minute. Why are the X-Men showing up in their original outfits and not their new outfits from issue 39? I think sometimes, the writers or the artists really didn't know about the changes. All they knew is that it was a canceled line. Here again are the covers. Again, I love the way that this is mapped because it shows you how many months go before you see any X-Men. Juggernaut comes back from another dimension in this to fight with the Hulk at first and then against the Hulk, and see what I mean. The X-Men are back, but they have their original costumes instead of their new costumes right here from issue 39. This shows the Captain America and the Falcon storyline. And this is also another one that is written by Steve Englehart. Steve Englehart just loved to wrap up a lot of these loose ends for some of these characters. But this is kind of like the last part of the Secret Empire story, where even though he's doing that, he's kind of tidying up some of the X-Men's loose ends. And this is where he retcons a couple of the mistakes that were made earlier. Not by him, but other writers. I thought that was a really interesting thing to do as a writer that keeps track of the history and chronological order of things. But then we get one of the most... of course, we can talk about it. Incredible Hulk 180 to 182. But first I wanted to talk about these Defenders issues. So these Defender issues, to me, I think are very crucial. Because this shows the story of how Magneto is a baby. Turns into a baby. And later on shows up in Uncanny X-Men. Because if you read Uncanny X-Men, he's a baby that Moira is kind of, raising or doing experiments on. And then he gets turned into a adult-size, super sexy Magneto, as we call him, in issue 274 of X-Men with Rogue on the cover. Am I the only one that calls him that? That's just what I heard people call him. It's not me. Okay, he was, man. He had like a big chest. And anyway, but this is the story where Magneto gets turned into the baby. And one thing you're going to notice through here is that he's not alone being... It's the entire Brotherhood of Evil Mutants that gets turned into babies. We never hear about how they become adults again. It was just Magneto. But that is a very crucial story because later on... That's why Magneto loses it a little bit and comes back for Moira during those issues of Chris Claremont's last run on X-Men. Adjectiveless X-Men with Jim Lee 1 through 3. It kind of starts here. And then, of course, the first appearance. Full appearance, by the way, 180, 181, and 182 of Wolverine. And this series, or this collection, wraps up with the Fantastic Four annual here that introduces us to Jamie Madrox, the Multiple Man, who doesn't show up for years later. I think like 3 years later. Fantastic Four. They also introduced Karma, but that's funny because same thing happened to her. She was introduced, and then she's not utilized or used until like 4 years later. And Multiple Man, same thing. About 4 years later, he comes back in X-Men. So this one has 512 pages, and again, the reprint is $49.99. So it has gone up some, but if you missed it, reprints have a smaller print run than new printing. So as I was talking about the Hero Killers, this, believe it or not, will have more of a print run than this right here. Just so in case if you're missing this from your collection and you've been wanting it for a while, you may want to pick this one up first before Hero Killers. Last but certainly not least is Marvel Masterworks Ka-Zar, Volume 3, Lord of the Jungle. So, these are the classic Masterworks, of course, like every one of them in this faux leather look. Lord of the Hidden Jungle. Apologies for that, Kevin Plunder, or Lord Plunder. Marvel Masterworks presents Lord of the Hidden Jungle, Ka-Zar. Jerry Conway, Big John Buscema. I had no idea he drew so much of this. This collects Ka-Zar 6 through 9, and then material from Savage Tales 5 through 11, which I knew about. Now, there's only, I think 2 stories that I had read through here, just because I owned them, but I have not read most of this book. So this is the first time I read it. There's a wonderful introduction by Roy Thomas, who didn't write any of the stories, but he was editor at the time at Marvel Comics, and he was in charge of the Ka-Zar title for a while, especially the Black and White magazine. So, Lord of the Hidden Jungle. This story right here is drawn by Big John Buscema, and the inks are done by Alfredo Alcala. And it's just pretty much sets up, it's a 2-story arc about Ka-Zar fighting this river god and this huge creature. And that's basically what this is. Again, Jerry Conway writing these stories. But it kind of leads into the next story when Sabu, his big saber-toothed tiger, gets hurt. And he thinks he gets killed. He thinks he's dead. But he's like, well, I'm going to go and find my friend and bury him because he deserves it. Like, Zabu gets stabbed, and he goes and searches for Zabu and finds out, wait a minute, these are his footprints. Zabu's alive. Turns out that Zabu is now in another world of trouble because we meet this character right here, who's a very interesting character, this high priest. He has a little bit of a twist that kind of, well, no, I don't want to spoil it. It's pretty cool. I didn't see it coming. And yes, read the introduction after reading the issues if you want to be surprised. I love going into something completely blinded. I don't know what I'm going to be reading about. Roy Thomas likes to talk about like the breaking down of each issue. Not a lot about the plot, but sometimes he gives away spoilers, and he can rightly do so. That man has an amazing memory. But he talks more about the behind the scenes, about the embellishers, the finishers, why they couldn't get a particular story printed in time, which he does bring up here in a little bit. But this is all about, Zabu's about to be sacrificed, and then Ka-Zar comes in and saves him at the last minute. And then we get this story right here, which wraps up the Ka-Zar series. Now, I'm sorry, it doesn't wrap up the series. It wraps up the series for this particular collection. Ka-Zar went on to do, I think it was 20 issues of Ka-Zar. So then we get a more mature story within the pages of Savage Tales. Now, this one here is a reprint of Astonishing Tales number 9. So I think, please correct me if I'm wrong, I don't have volumes 1 and 2 of the Masterworks. This was already printed in the first Masterworks, but it's being reprinted here in black and white. And that's all due to somebody getting sick. Unfortunately, in this crunch time, they needed to get stories out there. This is the big story arc that starts off with the Damnation Plague. And if you don't know much about the character of Ka-Zar, he's a character that, interesting enough, I just learned through here, was kind of one of Marvel's first characters because of the Pulp magazine. In these pages right here, you learn that Marvel was, well, not really, but Time magazine was publishing these stories in Pulp magazine of this character named Ka-Zar. Now, of course, that's a different character. That's the character of, oh my gosh, what is his name? Is it Danny? No, that's Iron Fish. Iron Fish? Uncanny Omar talked pretty one day. Dave, maybe it's Dave Rand. It's the character of Dave Rand. That's the original Ka-Zar that appeared through there. But I mean, you're looking back, at the late 30s, early 40s. And then, of course, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby reintroduced the name Ka-Zar with a brand new myth, right, about him. He's a character that lives in the middle center of Antarctica. And this place is called the Savage Land. It's a place that time forgot. But his real name is Kevin Plunder. He is actually of British descent, and he's supposed to inherit this castle in London. However, he now belongs here, and that's what the Damnation Plague is about. It's about heritage. It's about, going back to the whole should he go back. It's a really cool story. Again, artwork by John Buscema, Sonny Trinidad doing some of the inking, and you also get Tony DeSanuga doing the inks in here. And sometimes it's the tribe inking it, which is Tony DeSanuga's team. And not just them, but sometimes it's the crap. Here, I'll show you. But one of the most important things that happens through here is a story I've never read, but it's the return of Bobby Morse. As some of you all come to know her, I knew her as Mockingbird. But she was a love interest for Ka-Zar. Now, in this story, she also brings in this lady right here. Her name is Shanna O'Hara, who a lot of people know as Shauna, the she-devil. So, you know where this story is going to go, or at least I was like, okay, well, I know where this is going to go. Now, she's a little bit different than Ka-Zar. Like, she doesn't like killing animals. And not that he does. He does it to survive or to eat. That is the same thing, surviving, eating. But she does it in a way, like she's trying to knock out this snake that is crushing Ka-Zar. And he just, gets out and stabs and cuts the snake. And she's like, are you happy? Did you have to kill that creature that was just doing what creatures do? So, this is a really interesting collection. Beautiful artwork in here. Now, John Buscema doesn't do everything in here. Eventually, him and both Jerry Conway end up leaving. But I love to see, him and just the different inkers and embellishers that finish out his run. These are the same teams that worked on Conan the Barbarian, so it's really cool to see it. Again, a little more graphic because this is black and white as opposed to the color comics. Sadly, this line got canceled because this is where Conan was first published, and then when they took Conan over to Savage Sword of Conan, this line just kind of died, if you will. Now, this is Jerry Conway with Steve Gann. And Steve Gann was one of the tribe, one of Tony DeSonugia's artists on his team. And then we get some backup stories here, and these are really cool. Because again, I've never read these, and I think this is the first time these stories have been published. This is by Carla Conway, and it is the story of Shauna the She-Devil. And this is all drawn by the tribe, and it's assisted by Jerry Conway. So this is his wife writing the story, and it's got some beautiful artwork. And as much as I like this one, the art in this backup, let me just show you. This one back here, again, by Carla Conway. This is Ross Andrew and Vince Coletta, or as they're known here, Ross Andrew and Vinny Coletta. Oh my gosh, she just looks super just classy. I don't know what it is about Vince's inks on Ross Andrew. She just has a classy look to her. She looks stunning. My goodness. And again, the Savage Tales magazine ended up getting canceled, sadly. But not before you miss out on some wonderful artwork in black and white and stories that at least I've never read. I can't remember if Ka-Zar had an essential collection or not. This is an Intruder story by Archie Goodwin. Russ Heath doing the artwork here. And what was I going to be talking? Oh, I was going to be talking about the crusty, what were they called? The crusty cabbards? Let me see if I can find it, but I'll come back to this. The crusty bunkers. That's who they were. So they were inking. This is Russ Heath penciling it with another story by Jerry Conway. But the crusty bunkers were just pretty much anybody that Neil Adams or Dick Giordano would have in their studios. And they would ink as kind of like the tribe. I like that. I like that they gave each other names like that as a team working together. All right. Here we have, for the first time, Bobby Morse, who was an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., taking on a name. But it's not Mockingbird. It's the Huntress. I've never read this story. So this is a solo adventure. Has nothing really to do with Ka-Zar. But I'm just so glad they added it here. Because it's one of those stories that unless they do something like a Mockingbird omnibus, will just be lost in the passage of time. Then we have some original artwork back here. Love seeing these. And then the biographies of all these wonderful creators. And a lot of them sadly gone. Some of them gone way too soon. This book retails for $75, and this particular volume has 392 pages. And that, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing any of these books, don't forget to check out our sponsor, cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content and page count of each of these books. I love doing these overviews because I know, my channel brings in a lot of people that love the big oversized hardcovers, but there's so many of my viewers that love talking about trade paperbacks because that's what you all collect, and that's the way that you read these stories. So to me, it brings me a lot of joy to get to talk about these books because a lot of these, this is the way I've read them for the first time. Like, I've never read any of that Miss Marvel little mini series. All these stories were new to me with the exception of one or two in there. And this was a really nice collection. But, this is the way that I do it. I'm a trade waiter. Unless it's something really important that I just can't. And I'm like, oh, all right, digital, you win this time. Any questions, leave them down below. And smash that like button. Check out our Patreon and Spreadshop. Amazing ways to support the channel. And our Patreon link and the Spreadshop link are in the description of the video. And Patreon, we have different tiers to meet your needs. But everyone, stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.